Hello, a very good afternoon, good morning to you all from wherever you're joining us. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the SIP at 50 Africa event. And indeed, we did not choose it to fall in this year of the pandemic, but anyway, it still gives us great joy and something to celebrate. So I welcome you to celebrate with us. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Vivian Atakos. I am Regional Communications Specialist for the International Potato Center. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. Over the last 50 years, SIP research discoveries, technologies, innovations, and impacts have collectively improved the lives of millions. Since 2010 alone, SIP and partners have reached nearly 9 million households in Africa, contributing to diet diversity, climate resilience, and inclusive livelihood opportunities. The Sow Foundation recently estimated that SIP has generated $10 for every dollar invested in its work. In short, our work together with our partners has been a solid investment. So this 50th anniversary gives us an opportunity to mobilize our stakeholders, the staff as you can see in the chat box, both old and new, and also partners to highlight the potential of our collective research. And coincidentally, the CG is also celebrating 50 years this year. So it's a double celebration for us all. We are entering an exciting period of change. The 50th anniversary will create spaces for discussion with key partners around the future role of our science within the One CG mission. We would like to know who is with us today, so feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. As I can see, most of you are already doing just old connections, making friends. And as we proceed with the session, we would also wish to receive your comments and your questions. Please make use of the question and answer box, and we will get to you as we take the questions. Also, feel free to engage with us on social media. Our social media team is active and ready to go using the hashtag SIP50. Regarding the event today, we will listen to a keynote address, get into a panel discussion that will lead us into a question and answer session. Then we have the privilege to listen to a donor perspective before we get to the closing. It's really an exciting program, and I welcome you to stay on with us till the end. So while Malawi offers excellent examples of SIP innovations at work, with thanks of course to our partners and funders, some of our speakers are also going to highlight achievements made in other countries. So to start us off, let us watch this video, and a very warm welcome to you once again.
In Malawi has been the development of improved technologies of both orange flesh sweet potato, and taking those technologies to farming communities in the country. Thanks to Irish Aid, we have so far reached 300,000 households with those technologies.
We're very proud to see the application of research and science, but most of all, what inspires us the most is to meet with the actual women farmers. When you hear women from very rural areas now saying that they're paying for school fees, school uniforms, health costs, that's a huge transformation and a huge step forward for families here in Malawi.
When you see the transformation from a situation where there is no clean planting material in the country to a situation where we are now serving the whole country with clean planting material of our crops, I'm very, very happy for that.
Thank you for that short video, just spotlighting some of our activities that we have been able to undertake in Malawi together with our partners. So for now, as I had earlier indicated, we would wish to know who's joining us today. So we have prepared a short poll, and we hope that we can hear your responses through this short poll. So our question is, what kind of organization do you work for? So just choose the one that describes where you work. Is it an advanced research institute, government, donor, NGO, business, academia, or the CGIAR? Antonella, you can also tell us how we are doing in terms of the polling. And I can see there's 197 of us in the room, which is quite exciting. Let's take the poll. Sean Farrell from Irish Aid, welcome. Thank you for joining us. You can see Anna Abidin. We are going through the poll. That's the summary. We can see that majority are within the CG, which is great. in terms of the 1CG. Then we are also looking at the Advanced Research Institutes, 8%. NGOs also coming in closely with a tie, then government and donor. Business entities, academia, you can see from your screen. So thank you very much for responding to that poll. And we can move ahead with your permission. So the next session is where we are going to listen to a keynote address. And we have one of our long-term collaborators. We have Dr. Wilson Makumba, who is the director of the Department of Agricultural Research Services, DAS within Malawi's Ministry of Agriculture, which is mandated to conduct research and generate technologies. DAS has several research stations strategically located in Malawi's different agroecological zones and is responsible for releasing improved crop varieties that improve agricultural productivity, incomes, and nutrition. Dr. Makumba previously worked as a National Research Coordinator for Soils and Agricultural Engineering, as well as Station Manager for Chitedze Agricultural Research Station. And he holds a PhD in Soil Sciences from Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Welcome, Dr. Makumba, for your keynote address.
Thanks very much, Vivian. First of all, let me apologize actually to all the participants that I will not beam my presentation. Prepared this a short presentation actually that I would have shared with you, but anyway, I'll just read through my presentation. These are just the highlights of CIP DAS key collaborative research achievements in Malawi. DAS actually is presenting the Department of Agriculture Research Services. Thank you very much actually for having the presentation shared. Our collaborative research, of course, dates back 20 years ago, and together we have moved actually with the research to the modern times. And indeed, during this period, we have been able to release up to 13 sweet potato varieties. These are superior, actually, varieties that we have released. And as of now, of course, we are advocating more on those varieties that are really helping in the boosting actually nutrition to farmers. So out of these 13 sweet potato varieties, we have 7 sweet potato varieties, which are orange fresh sweet potato. And as of late, we have done intensive actually sensitization with the farmers, and most of the farmers are really going for those varieties. We have also released the 10 potato varieties, which of course they have been taken up by the farmers. As of now, we have seen actually an increased demand of the potato and also use of the potato in the country. The current varieties, indeed, they are helping the farmers actually, they are higher yielding, but also they are also resistant actually to the common diseases, which the farmers, of course, we are having problems with. We have also enhanced on the seed systems. And this, of course, we introduced the aeroponic seed production, which indeed has helped it to keep some of the problems, especially the diseases which the farmers actually were spreading amongst themselves by sharing actually the farm safety potato seed. So the aeroponic indeed has really reduced the instances of the diseases and therefore the losses of the potato. We are also dealing with the micropropagation for both the potato and the sweet potato. We have developed the city standards for both potato and the sweet potato so that at least we are able to certify the seed that the farmers actually could use for their actually higher production of the crops. Next slide. No, you have skipped one slide. On capacity building. And capacity building, actually, yes, we are there. Of course, with CIP has helped us to train actually our members of staff. We are on capacity building, please. Go for one slide. Members of staff have been trained up to master's degree level and also have supported us actually in many short-term training. These include actually the microbe propagation, and also actually in the disease and the pests. Infrastructure, indeed, they have assisted us in the building of the infrastructure irrigation facilities at the Vumbwe Agricultural Research Station, so that at least we are able to produce during the winter, during the dry season. And most of the seed production actually is done during the winter, so that at least the farmers are getting actually those clean materials on time when at the onset of the rainfall or the season. And the same, we have actually constructed another education facility at the Malwa Agricultural Research Station, where indeed we had a lot of problems to keep our materials, but also to continue with the research during the dry season. They have supported us actually in renovating laboratories and also built new screen houses. On laboratory equipment, they have bought us actually up-to-date equipment, laboratory equipment, and also reagents for our laboratories. Next, together, of course, there's a potential for the root and tuber and the banana crops to improve food and the nutrition security, incomes, climate resilience, and gender equality in Malawi. Here actually, we have seen, of course, because of the higher demand that we are getting actually on the ground, and the sensitization that we are doing, the dissemination of these new varieties that we are actually developed. There's an increase actually demand for the nutritious food, the OFSP, orange freshly sweet potato, and the purple freshly sweet potato, which actually contain the vitamin A, iron, zinc. Actually, there's expanding market opportunities in very urban and the urban areas. This is actually because of the higher demand that we are having. It has increased the production of actually the sweet potato and the potato in the villages where actually they are producing the crop. And indeed, more farmers are now demanding for clean seed so that they produce more for this market. Application of novel crop breeding technologies, i.e. the genomic selection, will increase actually gains from breeding efforts. And of course, instead of actually taking really long to come up with those varieties, at least with the current technologies, they're assisting us to take shortcuts and release quickly those varieties to the farmers so that at least they are able to benefit from these new varieties that we are breeding. Diverse weather conditions, on the other hand, of course, they have helped us actually to increase the demand of the root and tuber crop as a security crop. We have seen, of course, the government actually coming in to demand for the seed for these new varieties in times where the farmers have been hit with the terminal droughts, and their maize crop has failed. So as a security crop, actually, normally they just come up actually with the potato or sweet potato crop, which they actually are distributed to the farmers so that at least at the end of the season, they still have something actually which they can use. And the same applies actually when they're hit by actually floods and their maize crop has been actually swept away. So with the residual moisture, at least they're able now to use the sweet potato actually to crop so that at least they still have something which they can sell and also use actually domestically for their food. Next slide. Yeah, we're still in that research and our work actually, we are still meeting with the challenges. Some of them, just to mention a few. Of course, because of the economic problems that we are facing globally, there's a decline actually in the research funding. And indeed, this is really affecting actually our fast progressing of our research in the production and the release of the new varieties to the farmers. But also, actually, we still need to do more research in the actually combating the diseases and pests which the farmers are also actually experiencing in their fields. The climate change, of course, it leads to loss of germplasm, but at the same time, of course, we have seen that it has come up with a surge of pests and diseases which are really new to the farmers. So it calls for the research actually to come in to assist the farmers, identify these pests, identify the diseases, and come up with the solutions, of course, so that at least the productivity still continues. There's low level of commercial processing, and this is, of course, it reduces actually the benefit of the market. If we are to increase more on the commercial processing, at least we will see that more of what the farmers are producing will be absorbed by the industry, so that the farmers actually will be still producing more and more, and there will be more demand for our technologies. So at least on that part, it's becoming actually a challenge, because whatever we are producing, most of it, almost over 75% of it, actually is actually for just a domestic for consumption, not the industrial use. Higher cost of storage investment, actually the quality for long keeping of this the potato, and even the sweet potato, of course, it goes for the cold rooms. If anything, the improved infrastructure that we can actually construct to store these a bit longer, they're a bit costly too for the level of actually smallholder farmer. So that becomes also a challenge. As a result, those farmers that are not able to manage to put up such structures, they end up losing actually a big part of their crop which they harvest. Next slide. So because of that, indeed, we still need actually more capacity building to be undertaken, especially on the novel breeding technologies, so that at least we equip more scientists nationally, so that at least we are able to do more breeding to cope up with the climate change. So we really need to maintain this research very dynamic and up to date with the current actual situation. We are looking at the banana micropropagation. In the Malawi, we have been hit by actually the BBTV, and the situation is really very bad to the point that we have been importing a lot of banana from outside Malawi, which has been actually demerit to the country. But as of now, of course, this is what we really need, as we have most of the farmers have really understood of the problem, and they have uprooted actually their old crop, which has been affected, and they are waiting to get clean crop actually, so that they should replace it with the old. But now what we have actually is a big challenge in the micropropagation, the tissue culture, so that at least we provide for actually to the farmers. And even the breeding techniques, so that at least we come up with those that are also resistant or tolerant to the current situations. There are issues, of course, the harvest handling, as I said earlier, where farmers are really losing a lot. So we really need to intensify our actual research in those areas to make sure that the farmers are not losing out a lot, because whatever they are losing is money for them, and also food security and nutrition. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all what I had, of course, to share with you in brief, knowing that we don't have much time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Makumba, for that keynote address and just for setting the scene and getting us started. You have very well highlighted some of the achievements that the SIP and DAS partnership has yielded, including faster release of varieties. You've also highlighted the challenges, including climate change, and also what the future holds. So probably we'll come back to you during the question and answer session. I'd like to encourage my participants to keep their questions coming for Dr. Makumba through the question and answer button, and we will come to them after this panel session. So now I'll move you on to the next session, which is a panel discussion, and I'd like to invite my colleague Antonella to spotlight our panelists. We have 4 panelists today. We have Dr. Regina Kapinga. We have Dr. Jane Ininda. We also have Jean Pankuku and we have Dr. Paul Demo. So these are wonderful ladies and gentlemen are our panelists for today to take us through this session of discussions just to look at deeper matters as pertaining to our work in Malawi and also broadly in Africa. So I will introduce Dr. Regina Kapinga, who's the head of advocacy and resource mobilization. She holds a PhD in agronomy and an MSc in crop science. She has actually worked for SIP at some point as sweet potato breeder in sub-Saharan Africa before she moved on to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as senior program officer. So Dr. Kapinga, we are looking forward to interacting with you. Next, we have Dr. Jen Ininda, who's the head for seed research and systems development at the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. And she leads crop research, seed production, and seed certification and regulatory interventions. Her career in agricultural science and development in Africa spans 30 years. And she has actually, as part of the team she has led, developed and released 685 resilient crop varieties and supported the development of 100 plus private seed companies in Africa. She holds a PhD in plant breeding from Iowa State University in the USA. So welcome, Dr. Jen Ininda. Next, we have Jean Pankuku, who is a food technologist with experience in processing, product development, food safety, nutrition, and project management. She's current board chair for the Root and Tuber Crops Development Trust, and also co-chair of the Scaling Up Nutrition Business Network in Malawi. She's also the General Secretary for the Laboratory Association of Malawi and the Africa Potato Association, which is coming up in 2022, hosted by Malawi. She is the Vice President for the organizing committee. She founded Tehila Bakery and Value Addition Center, which produces and sells products made from locally grown crops such as orange flesh sweet potato. Welcome, Jean Pankuku. Finally, we have our very own Dr. Paul Demo, who holds a PhD and an MSc in agronomy from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. And he has 31 years of experience and skills in agricultural research for development, research leadership and management, project management, capacity development, and management of public-private sector partnerships. So prior to his current position as Regional Director for Africa, Paul worked in Malawi as Senior Scientist and Country Manager, and he was also the Regional Potato Expert for Sub-Saharan Africa. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this round. Our audience is really looking forward to hearing about your views and your perspectives based on the work that you have been implementing in the region. So to start it off, allow me to call upon Dr. Regina Kapinga. Regina?
Thank you so much.
Yes, Regina. So to start us off, maybe you can just tell us the potential. What is the potential for root and tuber banana crops for the improvement of food and nutrition security, incomes, and climate resilience in sub-Saharan Africa? Over to you.
Thank you, Vivian. I don't even want to call it potential. I want to say it is happening. So there is no potential. It is already happening, and already Dr. Makumba has already talked about that. But before that, I want to congratulate my own center, SIP. SIP introduced me to the CGIAR community. So I'm happy about that. But it also allowed me to congratulate the team who in 2016 won the World Food Prize, my colleagues, Dr. Robert Mwanga, Dr. Jan Lowe, and my own sister, Dr. Maria Andrade. Congratulations. We are quite happy. The journey has been very long, but we are getting there, and thank you so much. Now, looking at the RTBs or rooted tubers and bananas, I don't want to repeat what Dr. Makumba said because he has already said it all on what is happening in Malawi. This is not just Malawi, but almost in sub-Saharan Africa where SIP works. But I want to talk about, let me put in a small contribution more, especially on the role of RTBs, more especially cassava, sweet potato, potatoes, and bananas to gender, youth, and the empowerment through food security, but also income generation. These are versatile crops which are so easy to manage, even in the areas where it is difficult for other commodities. But also, I want also to talk about the big role of, now we are in COVID-19 era, but we have seen a lot happening, more especially the contribution of these commodities, especially cassava, sweet potato, and potatoes I call them COVID-19 shock absorbers, because when it comes to income generation, we noted that in some places grains could not be traded or whatever, but we saw a lot of lorries carrying food, more especially at local level, but also the regional trade. I want to talk a bit about East Africa, where again, we have Rwanda, we have Burundi, we have Southern Sudan. All these countries depend on some of our countries like Uganda and Tanzania for food. And we saw a lot of lorries going there where it wasn't possible for other commodities. But also income generation, more especially on the processing and everything. So I want to say that on the climate change, Dr. Makumba has already mentioned about it. We see the versatility of these commodities. They can grow in many environments, and this has helped. Potatoes, the role of potato, in the past we used it to think it was a temperate commodity, but through the breeding technologies which the scientists have come up with, already now we have drought tolerant and heat tolerant and salinity tolerant varieties, which are doing very well, even in places which are not necessarily cold. But also the potato in Africa is a commercial crop, and this has helped a lot for income generation. I don't want to talk much, but also climate smart varieties. A majority have come from Mozambique and the other places, and we are looking forward for many other things. But also the government, Dr. Makumba talked about the emergence, the role of these commodities to play a big role when disaster comes in many countries. We can't run away from that, but the commodities have played a big role. Let me leave some space for others. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kapinga, and I will come back to you at some point, so stay with us. Thank you so much for giving us even the new terminology, COVID-19 shock absorber.
Shock absorber, yes. Yes.
That is it. That's it.
Yeah.
To my audience, you can tweet that, SIP, hashtag SIP50. Okay, moving on. Jenny Ninda, welcome. It's your turn now. I know SIP has been working with AGRA for a long time, and you have supported the National Agriculture Research Institutes. So we would like to learn from you on the challenges and the priorities for breeding RTB crop varieties for African farmers, especially women farmers. What do they need when we are breeding? What do we keep in mind? Over to you. You are muted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vivian. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate SIP on this event. 50 years is half a century, and we do really appreciate the work that SIP has been doing. With ANGRA, we have worked with the SIP for a long time. I would say close to 15 years now, and we have seen differences in the farmers in terms of improvement of crop varieties, especially for root and tuber crops, particularly sweet potato and potato. Just to note that ANGRA experience in developing 685 important crop varieties for farmers in sub-Saharan Africa Of these 36 varieties actually are varieties of sweet potato. And as you have heard Director Dr. Makuba say, 11 of these have been released in Malawi, and almost all of them are commercialized, falling into, a very, meeting a very strategic need. Secondly, we have also worked very closely with SIP in the training of the students. In Malawi alone, we have trained 28 students, just as you rightly heard the director say, and we are very happy about that. Let me just mention a few challenges that we can highlight, and this of course have also been mentioned by the previous speakers, but I want to highlight a few. Number one, the breeding of resilient varieties in terms of close focus for pests and diseases. Like if we are looking at sweet potato, virus diseases and various pests. In addition to this, these varieties need to be adapted. That's what we call climate smarter varieties, early maturing, drought tolerance, and especially these varieties need to be of high nutrition. This week we have been focusing on food system, and we know that we need to improve our nutrition, and so a variety like potato force very much into this niche where we can have farmer success, high iron, high provitamin varieties. Some of these varieties are good in antioxidants. Not forgetting farmer preferences in terms of dry matter, taste of the varieties. Some of them are used for leafy vegetables, and particularly farmers have preferences in terms of sweetness, storability, processing, value addition. This is very, very important. We have found this as a big challenge because farmers need technologies for processing, and also processors need technologies so that we can be able to have a value addition to ensure that these varieties still, as we are their process, they maintain the nutritional content without losing the nutrients as we do this. And also we know that, when it comes to blending, adducing potato flour, which has been routinely used, now many of these processors are preferring what we puree, and we need to come with the methods of ensuring that we can process and store this. Funding, I cannot forget to mention funding, especially when it relates to seed systems, so sweet potato. Breeding is one part, but these varieties need to be commercialized. And so we have found there are a lot of challenging in bridging the gap between between breeding and commercialization, touching through, early generation seed production and how we can get these varieties commercialized either by the private sector as well. We know the governments are doing very well, but we need to support commercialization through farmers and also other private entrepreneurs. We know that a lot of work needs to be done to increase the impact and awareness, knowledge and awareness, especially when we are talking to our consumers because of the preferences that they have, and also making them aware of what options they have. Again, there is a big gap when it comes to seeing our impact on the ground, because as I have mentioned, the seed multiplication takes place now in the private sector, but with our efforts together and working with the SAPE and also the Ministry of Agriculture in Malawi, we have seen this production of seed going to the farmer level. We are having a project right now, even trying to see how we can work with seed companies and what we call village-based advisors, so that this can increase the availability of planting material at the farmer level. Let me mention that we need to scale up technologies and workable models when it comes to commercialization of root and tuber crops. Well, we know that routinely other crops like maize or hybrid maize or beans, they are easy to come up with models. But we know that potato, sweet potato, cassava, all these varieties, they need special models. Farmers have also, they need to be linked to markets. I mean, these are stories we hear all over. Farmers have excess produce, they're not able to market, and also the training of these farmers and the processors. So we have many challenges that we can work through, and we know that a lot of these SIP has really made headway, but there are opportunity to scale up these models, which we know are working at the farmer level. And I also want to say that it's a good opportunity, to work with partners and to see how this thing can further be upscaled. So I'll leave it there, Vivian, and over back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ininda. Very solid points, just from taking care of farmer preferences to looking at the enhancement of the impact through awareness creation, production of seeds, scale up of technologies, and just taking up workable models for the RTB crops. Thank you very much, Jen, for those comments. So now we can move on to listen to one of our private sector actors. We have Jean Pankuku. She is the proprietor of the Tehila Bakery also, where I have visited in Blantyre. Very tasty bread made from OFSP. So Jean, maybe we can just hear about the current and future potential also for adding value to RTB crops, and also how we can create more inclusive opportunities, especially for women and youth. I know this is something you're already working on, even via Tehila Bakery and through the Root and Tuber Crops Trust. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vivian. I also join my colleagues to congratulate SIP for the 50th anniversary. As someone who is involved in new product development, I would actually say there's a huge potential for value addition for the root and tuber crops. Because as someone who is involved in product development, you try out so many different products, and I know that there are a number of products that can be, that are already developed and yet to be commercialized, but we also have a number of products that are yet to be developed. So there's so much potential. I think currently, most of the products that we have on the market ranges from, flour, the puree that has already been mentioned from sweet potato, but sweet potato flour as well, the crisps. And in Malawi, we also have the high quality cassava flour and other fermented flours that are used in different ways. And then we also have the potato crisps. And we have seen recently that, these value-added products that are being used in the industry, like the flour, to replace or to substitute the imported starch that Malawi has always imported. So we have seen a number of applications in tomato products, for example, tomato sauce, chili sauces, and there's very high potential there. The only challenge is that the basic value addition that is being done at the moment is being done at a small scale level, involving groups of women, individuals, cooperatives. Their scale or their processing volumes are still on the lower side, but there is high demand for the end user, So basically, because the RTC, the root and tuber crops, they are very bulky and highly perishable. And so most of the big companies, they don't want to jump in the processing. They would want to take it slow. And so you see that most of the value addition is being done by small businesses. There has been 2 or 3 big companies that are doing the processing, and we have seen that potential application in the bakery industry, like as I'm already doing, but there are other products also that are being, where they are using the root and tuber crops, both the flour and the puree. So there is high potential. And like, as I said, for the small businesses, there is also a lot of value addition that is taking place informally. And so that requires to be quantified. And for those small businesses, they need, they're using the local technologies that are very small, that are very slow. So there is need also to build their capacities, to train them so that they can improve in terms of the product quality and branding, so that we are able to access the formal market. We have also seen recently an interest from the hospitality industry, like the hotels and the restaurants, where they're trying to push in the local products on their menu. But then the challenge still is, to find the processor that will be able to, process or to add value to the root and tuber crops, and to be able to meet that demand that is coming up now, so that we have the formal products. So like, as I said, a number of products are being processed at an informal level, but we need to formalize that as well. And so that brings me to, as we are also developing these products, as we are trying to add value, that will also call for, the research, collaboration with the research team in terms of, trying to have the varieties that are suitable for the specific products or commercial processed products that we are coming up with at the moment. So yeah, I would say we have the potential right now, and the demand is increasing, and I'm sure that it will increase. And most of these, like as I mentioned, it's women that are involved at different levels. Those that are producing flour, for example, it's mostly groups, cooperatives. So thank you, Vivian. I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, Jen. We might come back if time allows, but those are very solid points on, especially since you mentioned that your work actually impacts women greatly. So thank you for those comments. Paul, Demo, it's your turn now. I hope you are ready for us.
Very ready.
Okay, so we would like to maybe just hear how potato and sweet potato would facilitate diet diversification and also food system transformation. And having heard from Jane about Malawi and also just the work that Regina and Jane have spoken about, maybe you can point us to Africa.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Let me first congratulate all my colleagues and all partners that who have worked with us to achieve what we have done so far in Africa. Let me also clarify that the event is an African event. Malawi is an example of a country where we have developed a strong partnership both within the CGIAR centers and with government, and also with partners along the value chain, both public and private, to achieve the immense success that we have realized. To me particularly, this event is unique. Why? Because I'm Africa Director of SIP after working in Malawi for 12 and a half years to initiate the program in Malawi from 2006. 12 and a half years putting in place together with partners the foundation for the work we are celebrating today. For me, it brings a lot of joy. Also, today is my birthday. It is a coincidence that it has arrived at the time I'm also celebrating my birthday. Yes, root and tuber and banana play important role. As we have already heard from Regina, from Dr. Makumba, and from Jen, and also Jean Pankuku, really the potential, we may not be talking of potential, but we are talking of using the root and tuber and banana to play its rightful role in nutrition and food security and food system transformation. If I take the case of Malawi, we did an exercise to try to understand the proportion of root and tuber versus cereal, especially maize. What is the equivalent in terms of consumption, volume consumed in the country? If you calculate the dry weight equivalent of root and tuber in Malawi, for instance, potato, sweet potato, and cassava, we realize that in terms of dry weight, on dry weight basis, it is equivalent to cereal, to maize. But generally, it is not always appropriately recognized. And sweet potato, potato, cassava come in when there is disaster, when the country is in trouble, then the importance becomes very high. What I can say is that we are happy that after the many years of continuous work, thanks to our donor who have enabled us, the funders who have enabled us to continuously build this partnership to achieve what we have achieved, it is becoming clear to everybody that root and tuber should not take the second round. It is a very important group of crops that can play a significant role and is already playing significant role in food and nutrition security and in food system transformation. If I take the case of sweet potato, for instance, you need only 125 grams of orange flesh sweet potato to meet the daily requirement of vitamin A for a under 5 years old child. This is something that is very important, especially when you are working with a population in rural areas that are resource poor, but that can grow successfully these crops that are resilient to drought, resilient to climate shock, and easily cultivated by all categories of farmers. By the nature of the crops, root and tuber has a significant place in the food system transformation. I will not go into detail that have been given already by Dr. Makumba, Regina, and Jen Ininda, but I will say that root and tuber and banana, a group of crops that, if given the rightful place that it deserves, will contribute more than what it is contributing now, especially when we know that the climate change is here and it is not disappearing. We also know the disasters that are taking place, and we know the resilience of these crops when it comes to difficult environment. I would say that clearly root and tuber has a significant role to play. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. In the interest of time, because I might not come back to you, would you just tell us briefly how the lessons in Malawi have been applied to other countries and what we can learn from the partnership model that we see in Malawi? Can it influence other countries?
Thank you very much.
1 minute, probably.
Thank you. Let me say that before we talk of Malawi benefiting other countries, let me also say that Malawi has benefited from other countries before also contributing to technology and knowledge that is being used in other places where we work. I will give some example. When we started work in Malawi, we used the models of partnership that already was tested and worked in other countries, like in Eastern Africa and also in Central Africa. We use a model that is based on strengthening the capacity of national stakeholders, the national institution, and also the value chain actors within the country. This model is something that we took to Malawi, and thanks to sustained funding, we were able to put in place what we have today. We also introduced in Malawi varieties that were already released in other countries in East Africa and Central Africa. This was a strategy to fast-track the release of the first potato variety. And the first varieties were released within a time period that was half the normal time that it takes to release varieties. Now, what has Malawi given to other countries? A lot. Number one, Malawi as a country has enabled us to learn that we can transform an informal innovation platform into a sustainable governance structure that we now call in Malawi Root and Tuber Crop Development Trust. This started as an informal platform where different projects on cassava, potato, sweet potato were coming together with partners to discuss and advance the agenda of these crops. But because we were mindful of the fact that it is necessary to assure sustainability, partners decided to convert the informal platform into a Root and Tuber Development Trust, which is now a legal entity, an institution, an organization that will continue advocating and working for the benefit of root and tuber in the country. The second point I want to highlight is the fact that we tested the aeroponic system for seed potato production in sub-Saharan Africa for the first time in Malawi, and it was successful. Today, the technology is being used in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Burundi, and other countries. This is part of Malawi contribution. As a third example that I will highlight, when you hear of a positive selection technique or select the best plant for planting material in farmers' field when there is no certified seed, this technology on sweet potato started in Malawi based on the situation we faced in 2009, and it is being used in other countries. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for highlighting that. And so let's move on to the question and answer session. Just in the interest of time, there was very solid points coming out of all the panelists, but we just need to move on. So perhaps this question will go to Jean Pankuku. And Jonathan Mukumbira is asking, he is TRFCA director, he's asking, are there any strong linkages with markets for the small-scale farmers in Malawi? Jean Pankuku, if you can take that question. And as she comes on, I am noticing that there are lots of comments about the work that you are doing with value addition. Or if not, Jean, maybe Paul, you would be able to.
Okay, so Vivian, can you start with the next question for someone?
Yes, Jean, can you hear me? It was just a question on the small-scale farmers versus the large-scale farmers. And we have Jonathan Mkumbira who's asking that question. Did you get it? Oh, Jean is gone. Okay, Jean, I think we lost your audio. Maybe Paul, you're able to come in?
Hello, Vivian.
Yes.
The question?
Paul, the question
yes.
is... question...
Yeah. Hello, Vivian.
Yes, Jean.
Yes, so I saw some questions regarding any linkages, any market linkages with the small and large farmers. Yes, we do have. I did respond. And recently, the Root and Tuber Crops Development Trust has been organizing stakeholder meetings like B2B meetings involving the potential buyers as well as the producers, looking at the quantities that are required by the potential buyers and the capacity of the farmers that we have. So the Root and Tuber Crops Development Trust has been very critical in trying to link up the farmers with the potential buyers. So yes, there are those linkages that we currently have.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jean. And maybe Dr. Makumba, you'd like to comment on that while also tackling this one on this question has come in from Simon Wandera. He's asking how we can prevent loss of germplasm as a result of climate change. Maybe we can take that.
Yeah, thanks very much. Actually, let me just add a little bit actually on the some of the two questions that Dr. Nkumbira actually asked. Of course, we are not yet there for the large farmers, in the production, simply because these are looking for the markets. So they are looking for the big markets. So as we said that as of now, most of the the industry actually is not yet there. They are still shining away. So they are exploring actually for their markets too, for their products. But once they are there, I think you'll be able to do more of the large, actually, commercial farmers to start producing the potato and the sweet potato. And currently, of course, like for the potato, the market has fallen down simply because of the hotels, which were the large actually off-takers of the sweet potato, the potato, because their market has gone down because of the COVID-19. But when all things actually will be in good place, then we are hoping that actually the large actually scale farmers will be also coming in to produce the potato. With the improvement that we have made, of course, the medium scale farmers are coming in with the potato production because of the supermarkets that are also actually now able to take within the country the potato that we are producing because of the higher quality, potato sizes that we are able to produce. And indeed, they really recommend that they are good for their use. On the question from Simon Wandera, actually, here we are looking at the irrigation, of course, providing a good solution to the preservation of or conservation of our germplasm. As of now, of course, in my presentation, I did mention actually that we have been supported by CIP to put up irrigation facilities at the Vumbwe Agricultural Research Station, and also one of our other research station at Mbawa. So at least is where we make sure that at least we preserve our actual materials. For the farmers, as of now, the Malay government is also encouraging actually, and indeed is putting up quite a number of irrigation schemes. So like to have our farmers, we are indeed encouraging them that they should be producing under irrigation their produce. Thereby actually they will not be experiencing actually the problems of the climate change with respect actually to droughts more especially. So Great. In that case, actually, this is what I would like actually to comment on, that we really need to increase only the irrigation schemes so that the farmers should be using those facilities. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you. Irrigation, way to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Makumba, and also for your time. So we need to move on to the next segment, which is to listen to our donor, Ruari De Barca. But before that, Rodney Koch has put a very solid question in the Q&A. Perhaps, Jean, you will be able to just respond to that. He's asking that you have described the types of RTB products and the considerable demand for such products. But then, Jean, you have noticed that it's very difficult to scale up because of the bulky and perishable nature of RTB. So Rodney wants to ask, do you have any examples or types of post-harvest technologies that we can look to so that we can minimize this question? So briefly, in just 1 minute, and then maybe you can chat the rest of the response as we move on.
Thank you very much, Vivian. I was actually trying to type some responses in the chat box. Basically what I was saying is that we need to improve so that we move to improve in terms of the processing technologies, so that we move from using the manual kind of processing that we currently are using to using some machinery to process the products. At the same time, we need to look at some improved storage technologies. Like I mentioned, that these are highly perishable, and yet, this also has been the challenge for the big companies to ensure them that they can be able to source the raw materials like throughout the year. So we need to have some improved storage technologies This could be the use of cold storage or the use of some controlled kind of storage environment. At the same time, I think that also calls for some irrigation technologies so that farmers are able to produce the root and tuber crops throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean. And I wish to thank you all, the panelists, and also Jean, indeed the cold storage, but just to note that we are also working on shelf storage puree. I think it's very advanced, and aseptic packaging should follow quite soon. I think there is talk in Kenya, and there's going to be a big launch very soon of the same. So that should be able to cascade to other places. So thank you to all my panelists, Dr. Regina Kapinga, Dr. Jenny Ninda, Jean Pankuku, and Dr. Paul Demo. It was a pleasure having you, and for all the solid contributions you've made. To the participants, I see all your questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't read through all of them, but we will respond to them. We actually appreciate your participation through the Q&A session. So at this point, let's move on. We have Rory Dibarka, who's going to speak to us. He is currently Director General, Development Cooperation and Africa Division in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Ireland. He's a career diplomat. He was most recently Joint Secretary to the British-Irish Secretariat in Belfast, Northern Ireland. That was between 2014 to 2017. Prior to that, Mr. Dibarka was an ambassador of Ireland to Mozambique, Angola, and Botswana between 2010 and 2014. He's also served abroad in Mexico, Spain, and Greece. At the headquarters, that is, Rory has worked on Northern Ireland, Western Balkans, humanitarian aid, and on EU issues. And he has also worked in the Irish Department of Finance. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present to you Rory Dibarka, Irish Aid Director General. Welcome.
Thanks, Vivian, and thanks to all the previous speakers as well. It's great to have been asked to come here to help with this celebration of SIP's 50th anniversary. I hope that it's a golden year. Golden is a great colour for potatoes. We have a variety of crisps here called Golden Wonders, and I think, in some ways, I hope that this year is a golden wonder for SIP. And happy birthday to Paul as well. It's nice that you shared your birthday with all of us today. I wanted to briefly just touch on a few ways in which our partnership with SIP, generally and specifically in Malawi, really helps us with our international development programming. Look, we all know how good SIP is as a global research centre, and your work in developing sustainable solutions helps ensure access to affordable, nutritious and climate resilient food. We've heard some of the ways in which you do that already. And that work is very important to us, as we, through our aid programme, try to help others tackle hunger and malnutrition and to promote sustainable food systems. And indeed, that we're having this conversation a week before the next week's Food Systems Summit, I think, is important. Why does Ireland have such a passion for food and indeed potatoes? The eradication of global hunger in part comes from our history. We had a terrible famine in the 19th century, which was caused by a blight, a phytosanitary illness in our staple crop, which was the humble potato, known in Africa as the Irish potato. And that famine, in many ways, has defined much of the structures of Ireland to this day. We're still the only Western European country whose population is less than it was 160 years ago. But the potato, while it in many ways was the crop that caused that famine, it's retained a very important cultural significance in our diet. And it's also been part of our national conversation with ourselves around nutrition. So the work of the International Potato Centre has a resonance for us, which I think goes beyond just that of a simple donor. And your work, your research, your technical capacity are really important to helping vulnerable communities get access to affordable, nutritious and resilient crops. And your research too, I think, echoes and works with our own research activities too here in Ireland. And I really like, and we really like, how your work promotes and scales up sustainable agronomic practices and inclusive economic growth. And we heard some of the ways in which that happens already. We're using Malawi today, I think, as representative of the work of the SIP family, and our partnership in Malawi with SIP goes back to 2007 when we opened up our embassy there. And throughout this time, we've worked together with SIP, smallholder farmers, on the introduction of 80 new varieties of roots and tubers, which are high yield, disease and drought tolerant, or I think climate change game changers, it seems to be a phrase that's coming through today, and very nutritious. And we heard some of the stories about how that can move along the value chain. Over 400,000 smallholder farming households have been reached with high quality seed or planting materials, with women, as we heard already, representing the majority of farmers that use these inputs. And our support has also helped SIP engage with the private sector, specifically small scale agro-processors and commercial seed manufacturers. If I can digress for a second, and we heard talk about how, from Paul, about how Malawi benefited from previous research and experiences in the SIP family elsewhere in Africa. When I was the Irish ambassador in Mozambique, I asked my team to go to Malawi and learn the SIP story in Malawi, and they came back with really, really fantastic evidence of what was working. And we built a SIP program in Mozambique, looking at orange flesh sweet potatoes in Niassa province, which borders on Malawi, and indeed that was fantastic because it brought nutritious orange flesh sweet potatoes to Malawi. It also created people-to-people links, which are really important because small farmers from Niassa went to Malawi and learned from their brothers and sisters in Malawi the techniques and brought them back to Niassa in a way that helped us also drive literacy changes and other things. So lots and lots of really brilliant externalities, but always coming back to that question of hunger, nutrition, and value chain creation. Feeding people is important if we're going to educate people, and it's vital to their health, as we all know, and as we've been reminded over the last while. And with climate shock, it's really important that the climate resilience of crops is also a subject of investment. And that's where our partnership with SIP is really, really important. And the new varietals that SIP brings on, really critical to climate resilience and climate smart agriculture as we move forward. As part of a suite of investments in innovative science-backed solutions that incorporate sustainability and inclusivity throughout. And this year, and I've mentioned the Food Systems Summit, it's a really critical moment of global action on food systems, climate action, hunger and nutrition, and as a previous speaker mentioned, the need to also be COVID resilient as well. So the Food Systems Summit next week, the Biodiversity Summit next month, COP26 in November, and the Nutrition for Growth Summit in December. Each one of those is going to require us to seek to deliver on commitments and action plans for meeting global development and environmental goals. And for me, our partnership with SIP and the externalities that flow from that is a really important part of what we would bring to the table and what we will be encouraging others to do. In closing, I'd like to personally congratulate Dr. Barbara Wells, both on her ongoing stewardship of SIP as Director General and her new appointment as Global Director of Genetic Innovation within the newly reformed CGIAR governance and implementation structure. Reform at the scale undertaken by CGIAR of late is never easy, and I know there are challenges and concerns that still need to be resolved, but the ambition and outcomes to date are really, really commendable. CGIAR is now in a much better position to deliver on the complex and interrelated issues posed by existing food systems. And the work of SIP within that at a time when transformational change is really vital for us all. So on behalf of my colleagues in Irish Aid, and in particular my colleagues in Malawi, who I'd like to say hello to as well, congratulations to you and SIP on 50 years of deeply important and influential work. And I look forward to future opportunities for collaboration and partnership. And thank you to everybody my fellow panelists and everybody else for your contributions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rari Dibarka. And I can see Barbara was already just appreciating and recognizing what you have said, and she's going to come up next. So indeed, you've mentioned 4 very important events coming up just before we close the year. So, and very important also for SIP work, as you said. So thank you very much. And not to add anything, but just to welcome Dr. Barbara Wells, who will come in now and give us some closing remarks to this event, and also probably respond to some of the comments that you have made, Rari. So Dr. Barbara Wells is an accomplished senior executive with extensive scientific and business experience in research, general management, strategic planning, regulatory processes, and the technical development and commercialization of products in agricultural and forestry markets throughout the world. She became Director General for the International Potato Center in early 2014, an appointment in keeping with her ambition to improve the livelihoods of the world's poor farmers and to advance SIP's mission of improving food security and nutrition. And as Mr. Rari Dibarka just mentioned, Barbara was recently named the Global Director of Genetic Innovations for the CGIAR. With that brief introduction, welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Vivian, and thank you also, Rory, and the panelists, and all of those who have contributed to making this great event very possible. So I'd like to thank all of you for your illuminating comments today, which have helped make this event an engaging discussion, not only about the celebration of the first 50 years, but really looking with a vision towards the future. As Vivian opened up the session at the very start, in the last 50 years, SIP research has collectively improved the lives of millions. Since 2010 alone, we and our partners have reached over 7 million households in Africa, contributing to greater diet diversity, climate resilience, and inclusive livelihood opportunities. Every dollar invested in SIP has generated $10 in benefit for the people we serve. We are proud of this return on investment, an investment in future generations by improving the health of millions of children under 5 in particular. It's not an exaggeration to say that the gains in Africa for agri-food systems are key to improved food and nutrition security around the world. But these are not only our achievements. As we've heard this morning, and along with many, many other partners, our work has been carried out with other partners, not only from the agricultural sector, but also from nutrition, health, education, the private sector, and policy sectors. These contributions have been vital to innovation, and indeed the collaboration is that we will continue to be the lifeblood of the One CGIAR. The presentations today remind us that our 50th anniversary is an opportunity to continue to mobilize our stakeholders in Malawi and beyond. The role of potato and sweet potato will continue to be essential components for the food system transformation. And I would say potato and sweet potato, as well as roots, other roots and tubers and bananas. Whether as an early maturing crop to diversify and make agri-food systems more sustainable, or deliver urgent food and nutrition in disaster relief. These are things that all the panelists have mentioned. These crops are indispensable in helping to improve the lives and livelihoods of communities, vulnerable communities everywhere. Malawi is an outstanding example that as we were developing the One CGIAR, we were able to say that we were working together with 11 centers to bring all of the technology, along with the partners that we all work with, to really bring forward multi-sectorial interventions from field to fork, forming gender-responsive breeding and seed systems to value chain development. The array of technologies and knowledge that have the potential to harness the multiplier of innovation to unleash impactful and scalable solutions for land, food, and water transformation. Achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals is only 9 harvests away. And while we look at that daunting goal and recognize the challenge, the daunting challenge that truly is, and rather than allow that to raise alarm, we should not let it distract us from the broader point that food systems, if managed differently, could bring the foundation for improved gender equality, prosperous livelihoods, stronger climate solutions, and restorative environmental health. Indeed, this is the view of the One CGIAR. It is renewed focus on 5 action areas. And I'd like to go through these 5 action areas individually. One of the action areas that is intertwined into the 1CG 2030 research strategy is bringing forward nutrition, health, and food security. Now, roots tuber crops provide over 15% of the daily average per capita caloric intake for 765 million people living in the least developed countries. Provitamin A biofortified sweet potato has a proven track record of enhancing nutritional security with nearly 7 million households, mostly with young children, reached since 2010. In 2020 alone, our humanitarian interventions in 6 African and Asian countries reached 300,000 consumers, including 50,000 children under 2 years. The global potential for biofortified potato, with 40+% more iron and zinc than conventional varieties, has the opportunity to complement the existing nutrition strategies as we look forward, not only in Peru, but also access to that biofortified sweet potato, in Africa and Asia. Taking a look at poverty reduction and livelihoods and jobs, partnerships with humanitarian and the private sector companies are offering new opportunities. Working with national partners and humanitarian agencies like the World Food Program, interventions in 2020 reached 230,000 farm households with seed for biofortified climate smart sweet potato, which they planted to produce harvests worth $120 million, meeting much of their vitamin A needs and producing $25 million of nutritious food for sale on local markets. Biofortified sweet potato puree, as has been noticed, is increasingly used in an ingredient by commercial bakeries across 8 African countries, expanding the supply of healthier breads in mainstream markets. These include large supermarkets in chains like in Kenya, where annual sales exceed $1 million. Our latest partnership with McCain Food and the African Development Bank offer opportunities to take these healthy innovations to scale. Now, taking a look at the third impact area of the 2030 research strategy of the 1CG, gender equality and youth and social inclusion. All of our panelists, as well as Rory, have spoken of the importance of root and tuber crops on gender equality, youth, and social inclusion. They do require less physical labor and grown for home consumption. They can be managed by women and young people in households, proving a key entry point to enhance their participation in access to markets and market development. Climate adaptation and greenhouse gas emission is the fourth impact area that we see ourselves contributing to, where roots, tubers, and bananas play a huge role. Climate smart and high yielding varieties offer qualities desired by farmers and consumers alike. Through sustainable intensification, the quick maturing varieties are a means that can be grown in between cereal harvests, giving farmers an additional round of crops with minimal input. And in many cases, as I look at potato and sweet potato, they're also looked at as the crop that's available during the hunger months. So crops that bring income, but also available to bring nutrition during those hunger months between grain crops. And finally, looking at environmental health and biodiversity. It is as the unpredictable impacts in natural disasters, environmental threats, and changing climate further threaten food security across the globe, our gene bank stands on guard with one of the world's largest in vitro gene banks, with more than 18,000 accessions of potato, sweet potato, and other NDN root and tuber crops. Just one potato variety from our gene bank, Victoria, was generated approximately $1 billion for the Ugandan economy between 1991 and 2016. This genetic material, which is freely shared with breeders around the world, comprises a treasure trove of traits that can be harvested and for the benefit of future generations. Now, in my new role as the Global Director of Genetic Innovation, I am really pleased to share with you that I'm very excited about the potential, not only for SIP's breeding work and to deliver on genetic gains of our crops, but also across all of the CGIAR center crops, bringing innovations for the next 50 years. I think that in some of the panelists noted the fact that there's great need to not only breed the genetic material, but we have to get those materials to market. So our goal within genetic innovations is in fact to increase productivity by 1.5% per year, and also to increase the turnover of varieties to less than 15 years so that we don't have older material. But that also comes with the need to have a very focused work on market intelligence, as well as seed systems, which are included in the innovations packages that we're looking at, or innovations packages that we're looking at, bringing all together within genetic innovation. So that brings great opportunities to continue to enhance even further the work that we do with partners across the African continent. So in closing, I wanted to thank once again our panelists and thank all of you for your attendance and your time and interest, those who participated. Our work in Malawi will continue to inspire all of the work throughout Africa, not only for SIP, but across the 1CG. And I hope the conversations here today will further strengthen partnerships that generate value, resilience, and security to hundreds of millions of small farming families and resource poor communities around the world. And Rory, my incredible thank you to you for your unending support to SIP over the many, many years as a partner funder to deliver impact at scale in the work that we've done together. So with that, Viviane, I hand it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And I will not add anything. You have given the vote of thanks and brought us to a glorious end to this event. So fellow colleagues, indeed, the future is, I was about to say orange. Anyway, the future is green. And we are very excited at as we head into the 1CG, and also to be assured of the support from the Agricultural Research Institutes, from our donors, from CG colleagues, and all of us, SIP colleagues at present, and those who worked with us in the previous years. As you can see, they were all here, and we really appreciate your presence and your awesome contribution. So with that, I want to wish you all a happy 50th anniversary. And from me, it's bye for now. Have a good day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Bye to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much for facilitating again.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.